How do you feel about imposter syndrome?
We are the only thing standing in the way of our success.
I'm going to like the #1 school of business and the #1 school of public policy so that I can actually build something and make a positive impact.
Yacht Week.
The most out-of-pocket thing I've probably ever done in my entire life, truly. And it was a lot of fun.
I mean, what have you learned about yourself?
That's such a deep question. What have you learned about yourself, Cherie?
Hey, I'm asking the questions here. I was so jealous.
No, baby.
Yeah, no, I was so jealous I didn't get one. Welcome to Cherie's Corner, a podcast where we dive into the topic of career and hear from my friends and guests who are killing it in the business world so we can learn from their mistakes, their wisdom, and their lessons. I'm your host, Cherie. I'm currently a business school student at Stanford University, and previously I've had roles working in big tech and venture capital. On this podcast, I invite you to join me on this journey as we explore a wide range of careers and life topics and connect with some amazing individuals. In this podcast episode, I chat with my Stanford classmate, Gabriela Forter. She's a dual admit to Harvard and Stanford's MBA programs. While she ended up choosing Stanford, she's still going to Harvard to get her master's in public policy. Gabriela discusses her multi-year plan and strategy in her application process. So if you're a college student wanting to get an MBA, listen up. She also gives very tactical advice for people who are currently in their application process. Finally, Gabriela is a dear friend of mine and one of the most mindful people I know. We talk about how journaling and meditation has played a big role in helping her figure out her career goals, her application process, dealing with imposter syndrome, and also FOMO. Let's get started. Gabriela, welcome to Cherie's Corner.
Yay, I'm so happy to be here.
I'm
Thank
so happy
you.
you're here. I want to ask you to introduce yourself to the audience.
I am born and raised in Bakersfield, California. It's a pretty agricultural community. I grew up surrounded by a lot of different Hispanic, Latino immigrants, and I had a strong passion for social justice because the farm worker movement took place in my hometown. And so growing up, I was very passionate about constitutional human rights, and I wanted to be a lawyer, actually, when I was a kid. And then I went to UCLA.
And what did you study at UCLA?
My major was global studies, and I minored in entrepreneurship.
And after UCLA, where did your career start?
When I first went into UCLA, I wanted to be a constitutional lawyer and thought like the way to make a positive impact in the world was only through policy. I took my first political science class and I was very discouraged by how much time it took to just get anything done. So that's where I pivoted towards the business side. Also because my upbringing, I never had any exposure to the private corporate sector.
Most recently, like before the GSB, you dove really deep into like entrepreneurship, business, technology, VC. But I'm excited also for this podcast to kind of bring it full circle because you are going back into policy with your MPP at Kennedy School. Could you talk a little bit more about your roles leading up to the GSB?
Yes. After graduating from UCLA, I worked 2.5 years at Deloitte Consulting and then about 2.5 years at Meta, supporting different engineers on building machine learning models, which was really cool. And then while also working at Meta, I co-founded an edtech startup with a former professor of mine from UCLA, and we taught high school students about 5 areas of disruptive innovation: blockchain, robotics, energy storage, gene editing, and artificial intelligence. And it was really powerful for me because I wanted to get this education into rural areas like my hometown in Bakersfield, California, to then inspire students to pursue degrees in STEM and eventually work in Silicon Valley like I was.
Looking at your resume and your like LinkedIn profile, you kind of have the dream career of, I'm sure many people watching this podcast, having such a successful career up until this point. What do you hope to gain from the MBA program to help you move forward in your career?
2 things mainly. One, I think this life that we have is so short, and I try to think that like I want to give myself like as many experiences as possible. And so it's not only just like the professional return on investment ROI, which I can get to in a second, but the first main reason is just the experience of it, meeting incredible people, meeting inspiring professors, and having exciting clubs, having guest speakers, different CEOs and founders come and speak about their challenges, their failures, their successes. One of the main reasons was to give myself this like experience of a lifetime that I knew would be invigorating for me. And then the second piece being of long-term ROI. The way I boil it down is access to network and capital. Prior to that, of course, I already had successful sort of careers and worked in great industries, but it would still be challenging for me to hear about like job opportunities that are not posted on job boards, and that you can only know about that based off of your network.
It's challenging because like the network and the opportunities might not come right after school. I like the way that you said like long-term ROI, because like we can only gain that access or even that knowledge from talking to like alums who've been through it, maybe not right after school, but even in 10 years they talk about this, and I'm like, I guess I'll just believe you that like that's important. It might not be something that we see the return on for a very long time.
Yep. And leading up to applying, I did tons of coffee chats, which I'm sure people listening here are also probably doing that, given that you're listening to this. And it's helpful to speak to people like a year out of graduation, 2 years out, 3 years out, 5, 10 to your point. And you get different perspectives. A few years out, people might be, they still say it's the best thing they ever did, but they're paying off their loans. There's also a statistic, I think, that like a lot of students change their jobs within the first 2 years of graduation. And it's important to set expectations that you might jump around, you try different things, and that's what all the grads are doing, but eventually you'll get there. And then when you talk to people 5, 10 years out, it's just like they speak really highly and positively about it. And I spoke to a couple of mentors of mine who had considered doing the MPP or MPA program at Harvard Kennedy, and they hadn't, and they regretted not doing it because later in life they said that they, you know, as an industry leader, they wanted to work closer with policy, or they wanted to potentially run for office later on in life. And so that's another reason why I wanted to pursue that degree, is to just have that door open, and then also meet students who are different from our business school classmates. I think they're going to be a bit more socially impact minded potentially. And
Definitely.
Maybe. And yeah.
That's really smart. It's, like you said, keeps the doors open, but like optionality.
Yeah.
Because I talked to my mentor today, and he's just like, basically in your 20s, you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life.
Yeah.
And then in your 30s, you're like refining that hypothesis. And then your 40s, you're like actually very good at it. I forget that careers are like really long. And I'm like, I feel old when I think that I'm in my late 20s, but then I talk to people who are a bit older and they're like, you're so young. So yes. I think really adopting that perspective of like a couple of years out, more than a couple of years out, and then people who are 10 years out, like they can see the long horizon. Also worth mentioning is the other thing that I was excited about with the dual degree is that I'll have 3 years instead of just 2 years, and so that also gives me more time to think about what I want to do with my life and my career, and puts less pressure, especially on this summer internship of like, what am I doing? So I have 2 summers, and the plan is to envy that. I would love to be in school for another year. Yeah. Talking about the application process for business school, what did you focus your application on?
Identifying a common thread throughout my application, and then tying that to what matters most, or like what I'm most passionate about, or like why, what drives me. And so I think you have to take a couple steps back before just like diving into the application process. This is advice that I got, is just like journal as soon as you can leading up to applying, and just asking yourself like deep introspective questions, which is something I know you do.
It's clear that it's not something that happened overnight, but it's also like a process that it sounds like you started way before applying.
Yes, exactly. So that's the first piece of advice I would give to anybody, is journal. Like, why do you want to go get this degree? And it can be a plethora of reasons. It can be, like I mentioned earlier, you want the experience. Why do you want the experience? For me, it was going to be meeting incredible people that I knew I'd be friends with for a lifetime, people who inspire me, and just being around people who are excited about whatever it is that they're doing, and just learning about new industries and problems to solve. Then thinking about how it fit in with my past career experience as well. So I was able to draw a thread of like, okay, this is like what I did in the past. I worked in tech and in consulting tech. Then at Meta, then I was focused on building machine learning models, and that was like across Assistant and other AR, VR types of technology.
I think one of my favorite Steve Jobs quotes is like, you can only connect the dots by looking backwards. Exactly. Like, I love that quote, because in the moment, I mean, when we're like 22 to like, I don't know, 25 are like, I like what I'm doing, but like, how does this all come together?
Yeah.
And the MBA application is like one way. I think the really successful ones are able to connect the dots and be like, this is what I did, this is what I want to do in the future, and this is like, you know, how I show that like what I did will then be an investment for what I can do in the future.
Yes. Yeah. Another Steve Jobs quote.
Bro, why are we quoting Steve Jobs?
There's this great video. You gotta see it. And this is the video I think that inspired me to do entrepreneurship and try to build something, which is like what Stanford's all about. I'm paraphrasing here, but it's this idea that like when we're born into this world, we realize like everything in this life was created by somebody. This table, this microphone, these are just things made by people, and that you and I, anybody can have the power to change and build something too and influence that. And so that is what's like one of my favorite videos to watch of like, okay, that's why I'm going to like the #1 school of business and the #1 school of public policy, so that I can actually build something and change how things are run and making a positive impact. When I was at UCLA was when I knew I wanted to get an MBA. That was because I spent time at the UCLA Business School, Anderson, and I just fell in love with, I would actually like crash all their meetings, which looking back was probably really annoying. The reason why I wanted to get out of consulting was because I knew a lot of applicants applying for MBA would be coming from finance and consulting, and I thought, how can I differentiate myself? And so that was one of the reasons. I was like, let me look into tech. And so tech, I thought like it was a good opportunity, but it was, I think, to be completely honest, was like strategic for the MBA. If I'm being completely honest.
Like, a lot of foresight.
Then it's the test. The worst part. The worst.
Yeah.
I did Cherie. Truly, it's because, in my opinion, it's a lot easier. I'm just going to be honest.
That's what people say. I haven't taken the GMAT. I took the GRE in 2017, right after I graduated.
Smart. Do that.
But I didn't end up using that score. So
really?
Yes, because I wanted to get a better score when I was applying most recently. But I was like, maybe I'll get an MBA, maybe I'll do some other type of master's, and that's why I chose the GRE. But people do say it's easier.
I think it's easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I studied really hard for like the year before applying. I was just really diligent, like every morning, like 2 hours before work studying, and then like after work, like 2 or 3, 4 hours studying, and just like, on the weekends I had like a whole schedule, and I would try to like psych myself and tell myself like, okay, this is like actually interesting information, this is beneficial. The vocabulary, I'm expanding my vocabulary, I'm learning how to
use fractions
because otherwise it's just demoralizing.
True.
So the test. And then also in tandem, what I ended up writing about in my GSB essay was how this pivotal conversation I remember having with my mom at UCLA, where I told her like, I want to go down the corporate route. And she was like, no, corporate route is like scary. Like growing up, she was like, in the private sector, you can get fired at any moment. And I remember telling her like, no, I'm going to try this like corporate strategy summer internship and then this investment banking thing. And she's like, are you sure you don't want to just be a teacher? Like, cause she's a teacher. And she's like, there's unions and there's summers off and, you know, so much more like flexibility and predictability. And I was like, no, like I feel really grateful and blessed in this world to like try something hard and go for it. So I want to just really like, realize my full potential and try it and take a risk. That was like a quote that I started off like my essay with, was just like how that really shaped my life in terms of like doing something new and out of the box from the world that I came from. So at the very end of the essay, here's like a little tip. I said like specific classes that I would want to take, or I mentioned like I wanted to take the ed tech class with Sergio Monsalve, and then of course I took his class, and like I've even like referred friends who've been hired by him now. So it's just like, wow, I wrote about taking a class with you, and now we're just like colleagues, and we email each other like friends.
It only helps to be specific. In your essays, if you can be specific about your goals for the future, specific about the classes that you want to take when you're at Stanford, it really helps paint a very clear picture, not only for yourself, but for the admissions committee, that like, this is what I'm here to do and I have a plan. And so how many schools did you end up applying to?
Just 3, and I got into all 3.
Which ones?
Harvard Business, Stanford Business, and then Harvard Kennedy.
Amazing.
I was actually waitlisted at Harvard Business. My dream was to do Stanford Business School and Harvard Kennedy, because I wanted to have dual coasts, like 2 different schools, 2 different coasts.
What is the one like takeaway that you think people need to do now?
It's not about what you're getting out of the degree. The school wants to know what are you going to be giving back, and that's basically, I think, what they're asking in these essays is like, how are you going to contribute back to the world? So knowing like what is the impact that you want to have on the world, and like dreaming really big and not being afraid to outline that in your application, in your essay, and then being specific about how you're going to do that and how the degree is going to give you that. So whether that's specific classes, a club, a professor that you want to work with.
Could you tell me more about how you chose your recommenders and how you prepared them to write recommendations for you?
Yes. So the first recommender that I chose was my immediate manager. So that was just kind of like an easy no-brainer. This is how strategic I've been. I got a job offer at YouTube like 6 months before I was planning to apply for the MBA, and I specifically chose not to take that job because I wanted to have my Facebook manager write the letter of rec, and I wanted to have like more time like with her so that she could like have more content and like confidence in this letter.
It would have been way harder to have someone new write your recommendation and have the proven history of like working together.
Exactly. Yeah. So immediate job manager, and then the second one was the professor that I mentioned earlier.
This was a professor at UCLA.
Yeah, who then I ended up co-founding the ed tech company with. And when we founded the company, I did think like in advance, I was like, this would make for a really, really great letter of rec. Like, this is how strategic I was working towards a goal. He's like, you know, Gabriela, like I've taught like thousands of students throughout my career. Like, you're the first person that I wanted to call to co-found this with. And I was like, this sounds like a great opportunity to work with him. And then also will make for a really great letter of recommendation. So actually I created a recommendation packet, like a whole PowerPoint deck that I gave them. The first slide is thank you. Thank you so much for your time and like creating this letter of rec. And then the second piece was like, this is my story. I get into like the personal life, like where my hometown, and basically what I'm going to be outlining in my application. Like, this is the whole arc of like what I want to do, and like this is where I see myself in 5 to 10, 20 years. And I had that in a slide. And then I put examples. These are times that I like went above and beyond while working with you as a reminder in case you forgot. And another slide about times I failed and did poorly, and then how I improved or like responded, or how did I react to critical feedback, because the schools ask them, you know, tell us about a time that maybe they didn't do so great. It actually makes for even stronger letter of recommendation if they include that in there than if it's just glowing, because then the admissions committee might be like a little like suspicious and skeptical, like this is like only positive, like, and it just says a lot more like about the person, because no one's perfect at the end of the day. Everyone has failed, and if you can like, if they can include like a time that you've improved, I think it makes it even more powerful.
How do you react, and what happens when things don't go according to plan? Like you mentioned, for example, potentially being waitlisted at one of these schools or having like setbacks. Like, how do you react to them, and do you readjust course? What goes on in your head?
Slow down and see like, okay, what's the next right move, but not be in a rush to like jump to the next. That ability to not react is like what meditation teaches you how to do, is to just like stay calm, stay present. And that's a challenge, I think, for a lot of our classmates that are very highly ambitious go-getters, is we are always on the go and we want to take advantage of every opportunity. Instead of having like a scarcity mindset, just having like abundant mindset, and of like looking to the side and seeing like actually all the other things that you have that are positive. Yeah, I fundamentally believe that like meditation helps with this, because it helps you not be attached to the outcome and just like be okay with how things work, how things go, and just be present, be okay with like about the journey, not the result.
Yeah,
that's hard.
That is hard. We're gonna talk about favorite class.
Search fund class.
Okay.
So good.
I've not heard this.
Oof. These professors, I guess they're like technically lecturers. They were phenomenal, fantastic. They were GSB alums themselves. What's really cool about search funds is that it's born at the GSB. Like, this is a fact. Like, this.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
The idea of like a search fund?
Yes.
Could you also explain what a search fund is?
Yeah. Okay. First, let's do a little history lesson. There's a lot of baby boomers, right? And a lot of them are retiring now, and not all of them have a succession plan of like what to do with this business. And this can be like a medium-sized business. And so the idea of search fund is that like a recent MBA grad who's like, you know, like more or less 30 years old has the opportunity to become a CEO of this business. And the way it works is that you would get funded by search fund partners who would fund your search for for about a year or 2 years. And so that during those 2 years, you're out like searching for this company that fits this profile and criteria. And during that time, you're doing due diligence. So it reduces a lot of the risk versus like compared to like 0 to 1 entrepreneurship. This is like 1 to 2, and you can still have a really great return. And the search fund community, what I really liked about it is that it's very tight knit, and there's a lot of mentors who are very supportive and trying to help this new generation of search fund entrepreneurs. And it's really small.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of search fund until I'd come to the GSB. Is it more PE like? Like you're trying to go in and like turn around a company, or just take it over and continue its path?
I think perhaps both. Like you are taking it over, and you do have a plan for an exit because you need to like return your money to the investors that invested in it, right? So there is like an exit plan.
Whereas before you joined, there might not have been an exit plan.
But it actually requires like a different skill set as well. More like managing people who might be older than you and who have been there longer than you. How to build credibility with folks who are older than you, or how to fire somebody. What to do with just like sticky situations, and like what an entrepreneur 0 to 1 needs to be able to do is like find investors, recruit a team, and find product market fit. The search fund like of this company already has product market fit, already has recurring revenue, customers. What attracts it to me is like it's more stability and security, especially in this like market and economy where fundraising is a bit tougher.
We will move on to life topics.
Okay. Let's do it.
Gabby, what have you learned about yourself in the last few years?
That's such a deep question. What have I learned about myself? What have you learned about yourself, Cherie?
Hey, I'm asking the questions here. What have I learned about myself? Specifically at the GSB, I learned it's a lot about balance. Let me take a step back. During COVID, I learned I can be by myself.
Yeah.
Which is a very relatively new thing, because I'm a very social person, but for 8 months I lived with my mom during the pandemic, working from home, not having any friends near where I was. And so I was like, I can be by myself and hang out with my mom Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and also like the entire weekend, which was strange because I'm very people-centric. So then I think coming to the GSB, I had to get out of that mindset of like being by myself, focused on my content / my work or whatever, and like I needed to push myself to balance what I was used to and then the new environment that we were in, because I'd be so remiss to be like stuck in my room. Like we're here for such a short period of time that I really need to make the most of it. So how do I make sure that I don't overwhelm my social battery, but still like push myself to get to that borderline where I'm like going to all the events or, you know, many events.
I think one of the most important things I learned while at the GSB is to not have FOMO. Even like building up into the summer, this was something I was actually really intentional about, where I was like, I've heard a lot of students say that they have this FOMO and imposter syndrome, and like I want to like meditate on this really hard because I don't want to have these two things. And I'm like really like confident and happy to say like I did not ever have FOMO. So the idea that a way I would think about it is like if I'm not invited to something, like one, like whatever I was doing when I wasn't invited, I was content and happy with myself. So why should I feel bad that I wasn't at this other thing? And even if I was alone, like it's okay to be alone and nice to like that alone time. And two, not to take things personally, because there's so many classmates, and like just to be empathetic and understanding, like if I'm planning an event and I forget to invite one person, I just like extending that same empathy of like maybe they forgot to invite me, or they just like didn't think XYZ, and just not think too much into it, and just be like kind to everyone, not only like in the classroom but from my classmates. I needed that alone time to like let the thoughts and the feelings digest. Otherwise it was just like constantly being overstimulated like on all the time, that it's also like kind of a waste, I think, because I'm not really taking any of it.
It's like we walk away from our classes, and sometimes I do this on purpose, other times not, but it's just like if I don't kind of think about what I learned, it's not simmering and digesting, or like how do I incorporate this into my life?
Like a pedagogical tactic is to like after you take a class or something is to like write down what like the one thing that you learned. And it's hard to do that.
We will move on to one of our segments, hot or not. Hot means favorable, popular, trending. Not means less favorable, outdated, less important. I will name out a couple of things related to the GSB, and you'll say hot or not.
Sounds good.
Okay. First thing is touchy-feely. Have you taken it?
No.
Will you take it?
Everyone who's taken it has said that it's worth it.
What is the hesitation?
The hesitation is some people feel like it's overrated, that people who are already like emotionally intelligent and have gone to a lot of therapy don't need it. So that's why I'm like a little hesitant.
Next one, data and decisions.
Oh. But I had that with you.
We were in the same class.
Yeah. The professor's great.
Yeah.
He's really sweet.
But
I like stats. It's my favorite type of math. I just don't know how applicable it is in my life. Like, I don't see myself ever doing that.
Strategy management.
Hot. Loved it.
Yeah.
Firing people.
You need to learn how to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Case study method.
Overrated.
Not. Flipped classroom method.
I liked it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, what did you like about it?
I liked being hands-on in the class, like learning from my classmates. Like in D&D, it was actually kind of fun. Like it would be a whole like workshop.
Yeah.
Versus lecture, just like sitting back in a lecture. I felt very engaged.
That's true. View from the top.
I didn't go to very many, to be honest. I went to Brian Chesky's Airbnb. Fantastic, amazing. But I heard that he gives the same speech everywhere, so I'm not sure how original it was. But that's okay. That was a great speech, yeah. I should go to more, though.
Global study trips. Did you go on one?
Yeah.
Which one did you go on?
I went on Vietnam. Tiring, exhausting, a lot of meetings. Because they're required by the GSB. So they're planned by MBA 2 students. And they have to have like at least 3 business meetings a day. And it's just a lot, especially in like a high humidity place. I'm a California girl. We don't do humidity here in California. So it was just tiring. But I learned a lot.
As someone who didn't get a GST, I was so jealous.
No, baby.
Yeah, no, I was so jealous I didn't get one.
No.
Yacht week.
It's like the most out-of-pocket thing I've probably ever done in my entire life, truly. And it was a lot of fun. I got to meet a bunch of people. Our boat had a rat on it. And then we had to like change boats like 2 or 3 times. It was a whole thing.
That bonds people.
Oh yes, forever. And then people who are seasick, you see like people vomit. Like we are besties for life after that, you know? It really bonds you. And they're not even yachts, first of all. I mean, maybe technically, but like they're not, it's not luxurious or glamorous at all. So maybe some of the boats, my boat was not. It was very fun.
Talk.
Ooh.
Hot. Foam.
Exhausting. I needed my energy. At the end of the year, they had good music.
Yeah.
Like Afrobeats and reggaeton.
Yeah.
But other types of parties, I don't know.
Did you go to Vegas, Foam?
No, and this is the best decision I ever made.
Really?
You had a lot of fun.
I had a great time.
Okay, well, I'm very proud. And there's enough chaos in my life. Why am I going to insert more chaos? It's just, no, I need my peace. Because the GSB alone, we got so much going on.
Too much. Preschool trips. Including like Yacht Week, Columbia.
Not necessary, but I mean, I went to Columbia and Yacht Week. Those were like the 2 big trips.
Did you go to Costa Rica too, or
no?
Okay.
And they're really great to make friends. However, I do want to acknowledge that like they're very expensive and they're definitely not necessary. Many people who did not go on them and they were still able to like make friends, obviously. So this idea that like you need it to make friends, I just really want to say with like a strong caveat. Like yes, I had fun and they're great, but it's also good use of time to like spend with your family. I have classmates who did that, or just save cash. There's no FOMO.
No FOMO here.
No FOMO crew committee.
Last one here, GSB administration.
They took care of me. Shout out to, you know who you are if you're listening to this. I had never been to a private school before, UCLA being a public school. The private schools, they take care of you. I felt like they had my back. Like a lot of different things came up and they were immensely supportive. I mean, I remember on the day that we're supposed to be enrolling in classes, like I was doing it on the day of and emailed my advisor and I was like, can I come to your office and we do it together? So just like hold my hand, please. And she was like, of course, no problem. Like they're just
that's awesome.
Like really supportive and nice. And I know not everybody's had an experience like this, but personally, they've been great to me.
This next section is called Bills, where we're going to talk about how you are funding the MBA. It's one of the most asked questions on my TikTok and Instagram. I think people are more curious about it.
I got a fat financial aid award. Stanford and I believe Harvard, they don't do
scholarships.
Yeah, it's just need-based financial aid. So this is financial aid and this is a loan, roughly estimate. I got a loan about $50,000 And then the rest was covered with like what Stanford gave me.
The next one is expensible or extravagant. And you can say expensible or extravagant for these expenses that I will list out regarding the previous industries that you're in. So would you ever expense these things? First class flights.
If I'm traveling around the world, I went from California to India, yes.
For work?
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I worked in India for 3 months.
Oh my god, I had no idea.
Yeah, the coolest thing ever.
For Meta?
No, for a Deloitte.
Did you take a first class flight there?
Yes. It was like on Air China though, so it wasn't very luxurious or extravagant.
Yeah.
But I needed it. I was just like, there's just no way I'm sitting in economy.
True. Expensible.
Team
building activities like escape rooms.
Of course.
Yeah.
Expensible.
Meals.
Depends. If it's while you're on the job, yeah, expensible. Yeah.
Professional development courses.
No.
No?
No. At Facebook or Meta, they offered like LinkedIn Learning. Not Lyra, something.
Okay. Oh, it used to be called Linda.
Yeah. Back in the day. Or if I got like manager approval, but I tried several times to get like General Assembly covered, and like my company, both Deloitte and Meta, were like, nah, take LinkedIn Learning because it's for free and we're having it here for you. So no.
They were like picking and choosing what you could.
Exactly.
What you could use. Work related tech stuff like a smartwatch. No. But it's work related. No. Cool. That's it for that one. Okay, last section, corporate email sign-offs. First thing I'll ask you is, how do you usually sign off your like more professional emails? What do you usually say? Best, sincerely?
At Meta, we hardly ever used email.
Really?
LinkedIn, hardly.
Oh my god.
It's all chat.
Oh, like Facebook Messenger?
Yeah, Messenger chat. But, of course, there's, like, obviously certain things that you need to email, especially, like, with, like, more senior, higher-level folks. I would put, thank you, best. I had a phase of cheers. That was a thing for a bit. But then I was like, I'm not from the UK. This just, like, feels wrong for me to be saying cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, best regards, thank you.
Okay. Would you use these sign-offs? Yours faithfully.
No. What?
Would you ever sign just a G?
No.
Some people do that.
I know, but that's like pretentious.
You mentioned no cheers. Not really. Looking forward to your reply.
Nah.
Why?
Passive aggressive.
Warm regards.
Yeah.
Aww.
I love being warm.
Sending virtual hugs.
No. At work? Hugs? I feel the same inappropriate.
Okay, thanks in advance.
Yeah, it's okay. I wouldn't do it, but maybe. I like that one. I can grow into that.
Is that one not passive aggressive? No. Okay. Keep slaying.
Are these very Gen Z?
Yeah. What if someone said keep slaying to you?
I'd love it, but I think I'd be distracted.
Yeah.
I would never, but you do you.
I might adopt keep slaying just to
but
shake
what if
it up
you're
a little
not
bit.
slaying?
This is like a hope for you to keep slaying. Yeah, that's it. Those are all the questions.
What was the one that the biggest question that you asked me that I struggled with a bit? Oh, setbacks.
Oh no, like what was the thing that you learned about yourself in the last couple of years / recently? Yeah.
Balance.
That one's hard.
What about imposter syndrome? Have you talked about that?
No, not yet. Yeah. Would you like to talk about it?
How do you feel about imposter syndrome?
I felt it for most of my adult life in college and from when I was like 22 to 25 in the corporate world. Really felt it. And I've had like wonderful mentors who were able to reassure me and be like, no, you're great, whatever, and my boss as well. But I think it's something so like deeply internal. People who have imposter syndrome are usually people who are very actually good at their job, but like it's so deeply innately in them that like they don't feel like they're good at whatever they're doing, or they don't belong, or you know, they're not supposed to be here, whatever that is.
Yeah.
That it's something that like you as the person feeling it have to grapple with. I felt it less in the last couple of years because I think I'm out of the corporate rat race. I've been working on my own content stuff And I feel like I've paved a road that's a bit more unique than where I was before, that I can be like, this is what I'm doing, and I have a much clearer vision of what I'm doing and why I am the person to be doing it.
Yeah.
So I feel better about it, but if I'm put back into the corporate world, I'm sure I would still be like, I don't belong here, or like, you know, I'm not smart enough to be here. You know, those thoughts are very intrusive.
That resonates a lot. And to tie it to the business school experience, I remember like in the very beginning, I thought to myself like, no, I do belong to, I am supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be here. But then it creeps in, you know, when you're struggling on those exams and those midterms. And
when you have like a former Olympian in your class.
Or just like people who worked on Wall Street, like half the class, and they're in my finance class.
It's like, bro, we should not be in the same finance class if you've done this for like the last 5 years.
Exactly. So that's where the imposter syndrome would sometimes come. But then just remembering, again, it goes back to scarcity and abundance mindset. And I just think like sometimes when we're in like small like bubbles, our mind gets like really just like, we get blinders on and closed-minded and thinking like this is it, and like we have to be competitive with just each other. Oh no, it's a very big world out there. There's lots of industries, lots of jobs, lots of plethora of opportunities out there, that if I'm not good at this one thing, there's going to be so many other things out there that I can be good at and that I am good at and I can be successful at. And so just constantly reminding myself of that with my classmates. And don't compare. Comparison is a thief of joy.
Also, imposter syndrome is something so deeply internal that no matter what people tell you, you will never believe it. We are our own worst enemies. It's people who are high achieving, planners, perfectionists. Like, we are the only thing standing in the way of our success.
I feel like in undergrad I would listen to a lot of motivational content that was like kind of toxic, like, you know, work hard, like, you know, like football coach,
grind culture,
grind, like, no. Now it's more just like love yourself, and like by loving myself I will realize my full potential. I will know where I need to be. Like, I'm in competition with no one. Like, just like real true inner peace will help me be successful. And I think that that's what it's gonna take to become a leader.
That type of mindset unlocks, at least for people who are like very hardworking and like motivated, it unlocks a lot of stuff, and then you get out of your own way. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is the first video in a series of content that I'm making about my MBA experiences. I'm also interviewing a bunch of my classmates, and I'm excited to share their stories with you over the next several weeks. Follow me on the socials and subscribe to my YouTube. Keep up with more of my content.